Hello, good day, everybody. This is Raymond Sermonch Española of Surigao del Norte State University. This is the second installment of the lecture video series for GE, Gender and Society. In the first lecture video, we explored basic terminologies, basic concepts related to the study of gender. We call that Gender 101, where we particularly defined, distinguished from one another, the concepts which are embedded in SOGI. In this lecture video, we will talk about two chapters: the history of gender, historical perspectives in the study of gender, and also biological perspectives in the study of gender. Okay. To help us organize this presentation, so you can see here, for history of gender, we will particularly look into the early humans, also evolutionary perspective, and what we mean by patriarchy and matriarchy, and a local historical perspective. And then for gender and biology, of course, we'll explore bodies, physical bodies, and also brain structures, sex chromosomes, and sex hormones, which are testosterone and estrogen and what they do um, uh, on our bodies. No? So um, let's start with chapter 2, the history of gender. Just an orientation for everybody. This is a prehistory timeline where typically before recorded history, this is how scholars would document significant times or periods. We have the early Stone Age, that is 500,000 to 8,000 BC. The Middle Stone Age, the Late Stone Age, Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. Okay. So, ang Iron Age, nag-end siya sa kaning 43 in the current period. So, unsay nahitabo aning mga early na mga times. So, sa inyong makita dere, people who lived during the Stone Age, based on the artifacts na mga na-discover during the Paleolithic and the Mesolithic period, the early humans lived nomadic lifestyles. Sa may pasabot aning nomadic lifestyles, dili sila gapuyo sa isa ka lugar, no? So, murag gamove sila from one place to another. Siguro depende sa kung asa ang greener pasture. So, ato sila dito move, ato sila dool sa ilog, etc. So, basically, walay stable, walay static na community because they move whenever they're comfortable, wherever they are comfortable. So, siguro uso po ang hunting. So, kung naa sila yung mga kontraman galing, so they really had to move from one place to another. Pero na ay change na notice during the Neolithic period of the Stone Age, where people were noticed to move less and they started to do some farming. Okay? So, unsay implication ani, naa na sila sa may temporary households, and also na-invent na sa ilang head, sa ilang understanding ang private properties, no, na siguro they thought na there was really no need to move a lot, no, kay they can stay at one place and own certain properties. Okay? And ang nahitabo, when pag-abot sa Bronze Age, dito na mas na-solidify ang farming lifestyles, no? Kanang tao nga garelay na sa agriculture. So, gapuyo na gadud sila sa certain places, no? So, ang nahitabo po ani, sa panahon na kaning sa panahon ng nomadic pa ilang lifestyles, unsa may gender roles na gi-assign sa biologically males and biologically females. Historians would say men and women would share responsibilities when it comes to survival-based activities. For example, in the use of Stone Age tools. So historians would say walay discrimination ana whether the person was biologically male or biologically female, they were all involved in certain survival tasks or survival-based activities. And there was also some evidence of allioparenting where children were cared for by unrelated adults. No? Kay murag sharing kay ang mahitabo ani si biologically male and biologically female nga parent could go for hunting, no? To the point na tungod kay gamove po sila in one place to another. So ang mga children pwede nila ibilin sa mga laing tao nga not necessarily their relatives. And this can be biologically male individuals or biologically female individuals. Unsay implication ani, ang parenting responsibility was not really designated sa mga biologically female individuals. Gi-designate ang parenting to whoever was free, to whoever was designated to stay na mag-guard sa ilang mga properties while parents were, into hunting, no? And then most handprints in Stone Age cave paintings were from female bodies. Okay. So naay indication nga ang kaning mga female bodies were engaged in certain art. Okay? And dili necessarily nga they were all holding mga kaning mga kitchen ratanan, etc. They also had some social activities. Also, during the Neolithic period, tung nagsugod na sila na kastay, nagsugod na sila nga na sila semi-temporary households, it was noticed that people were consuming similar sources of nutrients. Pero, pag-abot sa Bronze Age, it was noticed that women relied mostly on wheat because of female skeletons that were found being significantly short, potentially due to childhood malnourishment. Okay? And also, kadtong panahon ng Neolithic period, pag-examine sa mga burial sites, there were no signs of gender inequalities. But pag-abot sa Bronze Age, it was noticed na ang burial site na ang sulod, biologically male na skeleton, na ay mga gold, na ay mga riches, daghay mga decorations, compared to burial sites nga ang sulod, biologically female. So, again, unsay po'y implication ani. Tung nagsugod na ang agriculture, nagsugod na pag-rely ng mga tao sa agriculture, there was this strong emphasis na on private properties. To the point na siguro mas nag-rely sila sa strength ng biologically male na person to be the leader. So, kay syempre, semi-temporary naman ilang household. Or, during the Bronze Age, garilay naman dyan sila sa farming. So, naa na sila gina-maintain na territory. So, kung naamoy gina-maintain na territory, it would mean na dapat na amoy mga baskog na mga persons na magwardya anang inyong territories. Okay? And murag historians would say na during that particular period of time, mas quote-unquote, celebrate ang male power. Kay sila may mas makaguard. To the point na, natagaan po sila taas-taas na value sa ilang small community because they're able to, you know, to protect their community. So take note, kung ato nang i-compare sa previous na let's say sa early Stone Age, tong nomadic pa ang lifestyle ng mga tao, wala sila'y ginahatag na more importance sa biologically male individuals kay sharing of responsibilities in terms of survival, sharing of responsibilities in terms of parenting and even engagement in arts. Pero tung nagsugod na ang agriculture, nagsugod na ang farming, nagsugod na ang need to protect certain communities, nagsugod na ang need for physical strength, no, to protect certain territories. So maoning implication nga ang mga male burial sites mas makitaan siya ng more riches. So, what does this tell us? Among early humans, particularly in the early Stone Age, societies were more egalitarian. There was more gender equality. No? Okay, mao to akong naingon, sharing of responsibilities. However, kaning egalitarian society na compromise when wealth and production became prioritized with the emergence of agriculture, late Stone Age and Bronze Age. Okay, so that's it. Let's go to evolutionary psychology and gender. Charles Darwin, in his 1859 book on the origin of species, argued about natural selection. I believe you already know what natural selection means, no? Nga kung naakay certain skills or qualities or characteristics, mas mo survive ka, mas kinapaboran ka ng quote-unquote natural selection process because you're able to pass down your characteristics to the next generation. Evolutionary psychology theorizes that it's not our physical characteristics that evolve. Apil na po ang atong personality characteristics, psychological traits, and behavior. And that's interesting because in the study of gender, kadaghay debates as to what could be the role of this discipline, evolutionary psychology, in our understanding of the complexity of gender. For example, we have these questions: did boys and men evolve to be more skilled in math and girls and women more skilled in language? So why do we see this pattern na mas daghay bright sa math na mga males kaysa sa females, no? And nga naman when it comes to talking, to speech, mas daghan man abtik na mga females. Also, did men evolve to be more aggressive and women more nurturing? Did men evolve to have multiple partners like boys will be boys? Di ba naatay mga common expressions sa streets or in our everyday communication, everyday interaction with anybody na naatay mabatian, moingon ta ang mga laki normal na sa ila na daghan sila partners kay diba moingon ganing iban, that's because of evolution. They were used to have multiple partners. Pero is that really so? Diba? You might ask, did we really evolve, or do biologically male individuals really evolve to have multiple partners as if we are naturally polygamous? And also, what is the evolutionary purpose of same-sex attraction? If we get into natural selection, di ba, ang reproduction or passing down of traits to from your generation to the next is important. Nga naman nag-prevail maning individuals who are attracted to the same sex, to the same gender, where they couldn't basically reproduce, no? kana man ang mahitabo sa same-sex attraction na wala man mo'y reproduction na mahitabo ana. So where is the evolutionary value in that, and why is humanity um seeing this kind of pattern no sa atong population na wala man siya murag di man siya maka-enable na mag-pass down ng traits. So unsay importance, unsay relevance anang same-sex attraction? So basically, kani na mga questions are unanswered questions. Ang debates nagpadayon, but these are the things that we are sure of. First, human behavior is extremely complicated and is likely influenced by a combination of not only genes, social influences, but also your personal experiences. So if you remember your developmental psychology discussions or even understanding the self discussions, di ba na ay debate sa kung unsa man jud ang responsible for human growth and development. Is it nature, ang atong genes, or nurture, ang atong upbringing? So we know that both have important roles no in our growth and development, and that is true and that is applicable to this particular construct, gender. So if you have read the required website or web page which I shared with you, that's by Griffiths 2023. She defined gender as an amalgamation of several elements, chromosomes, anatomy, hormones, psychology, that is how the person defines his or her or their own identity, and even the bigger culture, the behaviors that can be readily learned through observation or behaviors that are being spread online or in all media, no? So dili lang siya entirely social, naa siya'y biological element. That's why also our proposition in the previous chapter is our better framing of gender is when we put it through the concept of SOGI, where S stands for sex, that is the biological element of gender, while the other parts are the social, environmental elements of gender, or internal psychological elements of gender. Okay. And second, in modern society, we know today that yes, everyone is capable of making adult decisions, especially in your case, that you're adults, no, listening to this lecture video, that we're capable of making choices, making decisions that contradict our genetic makeup. So remember when we talked about social constructionism, the sociological view where a sociological view that states that um, we are capable of defining our truth, capable of defining um, our sense of reality or creating knowledge based on our social interactions. We don't just conform, we don't just follow, we don't just absorb concepts. Instead, we interact with others, we get information, and at the end of the day, it is us who, builds a reality for ourselves. That is, in the case of gender identity, it is the person after influences from biology, influences from the family or school or even the bigger community. So the child will reach a point where he or she or they will have their own sense of gender identity or sense of knowing of who she is, who he is, who they are in terms of gender. Okay. Now, let's define these two terms, which will be important later when we explore other gender-related issues. Patriarchy and matriarchy. When we say patriarchy, that's a social system in which men have greater power compared to women. Okay? We can see this within households na ang decision making, ang magbuot sa allocation of budget, allocation of money, or even unsaon paggamit sa mga existing resources, let's say unsaon ang kaning inyong lupa na property ng family. So, or even unsay kurso na kuhaon ng bata, no? Unsay property or say, let's say, kung magpalit motor or sakyanan or whatever. And typically, it is the male figure ang mag-decide. Okay, naaman siya power. And of course, we can see that dynamics within the greater society and government na kasagaran or maskin sa inyong group works, for example, there is a bigger tendency nga ang mahimong leader is mga biologically males, no? And labaw na sa kaning local governments, for example, na mas gina-value, mas preferred kung ang leader is biologically male. Again, that is patriarchy, no? When we allocate, when we assign, when we feel that biologically males have to have bigger, greater power over women. Patriarchy is reinforced through sets of beliefs about men and women, specifically that men are superior to women. So this has something to do with some religious beliefs which are, propagated in certain or in many religious institutions. No? Sa Catholics, for example, na ay implication nga the father, ang God figure is father, that is sa atong language, ang father ato man gina-assign sa kanang biologically male na person in the family. So yeah, but basically that's one root of patriarchy na kuan siya. Or it's rooted deeply in our religious beliefs. Ang reasons for patriarchy typically include arguments that men are biologically suited to lead, while women were created to serve and follow. So, pwede sad nato ini ma-connect ang example or ang support nitong sa early humans. So earlier I mentioned when the early humans started to own certain territories because they were already doing farming and agriculture, there were a lot of production of through agriculture. There was a need for people na nagpossess ng greater physical strength and prowess para maoy mag-protect. And for sure, kana nga arrangement ni progress through time nga dapat ang biologically male maoy mag-lead kay sila may suited to be leaders. And again, sadly, ni-spread siya across many aspects of our society sa klase-klase ng mga social institutions, sa school, sa family, and even in politics. Okay? However, when we speak of matriarchy, Greek mythology cites the Amazons, a tribe of women warriors, as ancient matriarchy. Historical accounts document women leaders across the globe, some who fought alongside their male counterparts, leading them in war. However, it's debatable whether there are any sincerely matriarchal societies in existence today. Kay wala joy technically matriarchal societal system today. There are societies which can be described as matrilineal and matrilocal, pero dili jud matriarchal. Kay unsa may difference di ay ani. When we say matriarchal, the opposite of patriarchy na ang tanan decision making, ang power to to influence others, the leadership role ginahatag sa biologically female individual. Pero in this case, kung matrilineal ra, that's only an element of matriarchy. Ang matrilineal society, ang society where ang properties gina-pass down, ginapa-inherit kibali sa babae. So for example, sa inyong family, ang mag-own ana is ang bae. Okay? Kung dire kita sa Philippines, 'di ba, ang ato modern way of sharing properties ng ato parents is gina-share man equally kung pilay mga bata. So na ay matrilineal society nga ang pag-pass down, pag-turnover ng properties from parents is gina-prioritize ang mga babae. Okay? So sa mga mahimong mother figures later on. So mauna ang matrilineal. Ang matrilocal, that's also different from matriarchal. So dili pod siya full-blown na matriarchy. Kaya ang matrilocal society is a society or a practice where kung ang anak magpuyo siya sa iyang mama or magpuyo siya duol sa iyang mama. If we consider that in our modern Philippine society, so 'di ba kasagaran daghan na tayo makita na instances of being matrilocal. So, for example, sa case sa akong parents, so nagminyo sila, nagstay me sa duol sa balay sa kibali parents ng ako mama. Tapos na ako'y manghod nga lalaki. So, ang ako manghod na lalaki maoy ni hawa sa balay kay niadto siya sa balay na duol sa iyang asawa. Okay? So murag ang location, the local, matrilocal is mas ginapaboran kung kinsa ang mother figure. Okay? So kana ra diha ra pod ang aspeto ng matrilineal and matrilocal society or practice. Pero basically, when we speak of matriarchal society, wala jud siya technically nag-exist. Okay. Now, there was a reading material which I shared, and this is the summary, the history of gender in the Philippines. We can also have this timeline, pre-colonial, colonial Spanish, and colonial American. So, ang nahitabo pod before the Spaniards came to the Philippines, there were babaylans or female leaders. Sila'y ginakonsulta ng society, particularly when it comes to medicine, no? Kay mga healers man sila, so kung naay masakit mo adto. So kung mangutana sila unsay perfect timing for harvest, ang mga babaylan pod ang pangutanon. Kung sakupo nila ang next na town, next na community, kung makig-away ba sila sa next village, usually it's the babaylan ang ilang ginakonsulta. They were spiritual leaders with bounty of knowledge. So implication ani, before in pre-colonial Philippine society, we saw warriors, warriors who were biologically female individuals, and also leaders and respected figures in the society. And also, there were instances of biologically male individuals na murag babaylan po, they were called asog, no? They were spiritual leaders and they were not criticized for being homosexual or feminine. They were free to have homosexual relations without societal judgment. They were gender crossers, no? So actually both of them were gender crossers. Kay ang asog biologically male pero ga-assume ng kaning same-sex na attraction and also femininity. Ang kaning babaylan pod biologically female pero ang ilang gender expression was more of being masculine, being the leader figure. Okay? Kana nag-change tong pag-abot ng Spaniards in the Philippines because we were introduced of gender roles from Western societies. Okay? So isa sa ilang na-introduce is kaning patriarchy and machismo. Okay? Ridiculing gender crossers. So dito nagsugod na ginakatawan or ginakriticize, ginaban sa society, gibawal ang pag-cross ng genders, no? Kanang pagtabok, no? So kung biologically female ka, dapat inferior. Dapat naara sa balay, dapat magluto, dapat maglaba, dapat mag-take care ng, children. And kung ikaw po biologically male, ikaw ang dapat warrior. Ikaw dapat ang leader. Okay? And dapat dili ka mo express ng feminine gendered behaviors. Dapat masculine behaviors. Dapat strong. O ng machismo and patriarchy. Giyon sa man ni pag spread, of course, through religion. So, nag-spread sila ng Catholicism, Christianity in the Philippines, and mauna ang ginaleksyon sa ila na unsay dapat role ng biologically male and biologically female na individuals. Okay? Since then, regional language for being gay, for example, bakla or bayot, would mean being coward, soft, or confused. So kung sa una, again, sa pre-colonial society in the Philippines. So wala na judgment kung mahimong feminine ang isa ka biologically male person, pero mas nagsugod pagsulod sa isip ng mga tao nga that is wrong, that is not normal kung ang tao mo possess, let's say, ang biologically male person mo possess ng, qualities that should be only for biologically females, no? And mas gi-reinforce pod siya sa colonial American society. So kadtong we were colonized by Americans after the colonization of Spaniards, mas gi-reinforce ang Western views of sexuality and gender roles through formal education. So pag-abot ng Americans, if you remember, ang isa sa ilang dako na contribution sa Philippine society is ang formal education. So, nag-put up sila ng several schools, no? So, dito mas gina-emphasize ang pagka-masculine, feminine, or ang patriarchy, ang machismo, so on. Okay, so here's an image of Pabaylan, ang manggagamot, from History of Philippine Medicine ni Carlos Botong Francisco. So, the leader, the consultant. So, naa sila'y community leaders na male, ang dato, no? Pero gadepende siya, ga-work siya hand in hand. Collaborative ang ilang relationship with the babaylan. Okay, this time, let's go to gender and biology. And let's begin with male and female bodies. So we are all familiar of this one, mao ni ang female sexual reproductive system. You can see the vagina here, that's the canal. You can also see cervix, myometrium of the uterus, fundus of uterus, and the space within the uterus, that is the uterine cavity. Ang uterine tube, that's also called the fallopian tube. You have ovary and fimbriae, and the mature egg that is produced monthly or regularly is from the ovary, no? And we also know of this figure, the male reproductive system. testes, penis. So, ang penis is the shaft of the penis. And kanang sa tumoy, that's the glans penis. You have the epididymis. So, you can see kanang epididymis on top of the testis. Mauna diha ma-store ang mga mature sperm cells which are ready for ejaculation. No? And bulbourethral gland, prostate gland, seminal vesicle, and so on. So I think there is a seminal vesicle ma-produce ang semen. That is the fluid aspect of the ejaculate. Okay, di ba kanang mo ma-release sa ejaculation is a combination of sperm cells plus other fluids na gina-produce ng other glands here, mauna yung seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and even the bulbourethral gland. Okay. Scrotum, of course, kabalutan. Okay. Now, unsay differences, biological differences between male and female bodies. So, ang mass media gabombard sa ato ng several information as to how men and women are different, no? So daghay kina-publish online moingon sila men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So murag na ay implication nga they're really different because they come from different planets. Okay? So mao tong na-mention nato a while ago na psychologically ang mga males uptik sa math daw, ang mga females uptik sa English, sa language. But again, how much of those ideas are true? Kung mag-istorya kita ng biological differences only, these are the obvious things. Penis and vagina make males and females different from each other. And we agree, we accept that on average, male bodies are taller and stronger compared to female bodies. Okay? Anak man yun. Okay, ang bone structure ng male body, ang muscle mass ng male body is different from female bodies or female biology. Another scientific truth na walay makalalis ani, we know that at the chromosomal level, female bodies have XX chromosomes and male bodies have XY chromosomes. But remember, it is possible to be XX it's possible to be XX and mostly male in terms of anatomy, physiology, and psychology, right? It's also possible to be XY and dili male sexual characteristics ang mo-manifest sa body. So, di ba remember na ay intersex, people with differences in sexual development, people that do not fit strictly to the categories of being male and female. No? So, here's the thing. Human embryos, no matter their chromosomes are, all begin with same progonads or bipotential gonads and remain so until approximately 6 to 9 weeks after conception. So, di ba kanang after conception, after ma-fertilize ang egg, di ba? So, mahimo man na siyang fetus, mahimong embryo. Kanang first 2 months ng embryonic development or first 2 months of pregnancy, tanan embryos mag-start siya sa murag walay sex organ. Okay? Ang tawag pa ana mga progonads or bipotential gonads. Okay? So, wait lang. O, mauni. This is the figure. So, as you can see here in the image, ang naa sa within the first 2 months of life sa uterus ng mother, naatay gitawag na bipotential gonads or the progonads. So kani dili ni kung strictly male, dili pod ni kung female. Duha ang potential ani. This can be female and this can also be male. Okay? So equal, walay distinction. So yeah, kani kagets ta ani no ang XX and then the YX. So katong may mong male. Okay. Now, karon ang mahitabo ani is sa taga ito na magpabilin siya nga bipotential gonads sa kanilagi sa first 2 months of life. Okay? Now, unsa may mahitabo? So as you can see here, kaning bipotential gonads or progonads, mahimo siyang male gonad if there is the presence of testosterone and anti-Mullerian hormone, that is the AMH. Okay? So if these chemical substances are present sa womb ng mother, that's the time na kaning progonads will turn into male gonads. Mahimo siyang epididymis, testis, seminal vesicle, vas deferens, and so on. But if walay presence of these male hormones, that is, kung walay anti-Mullerian hormone, wala po'y testosterone, kaning bipotential gonad will automatically turn into female gonads, ovaries, oviduct, uterus, cervix, and vagina. Okay? So, I hope you realize that na it's only in the presence of kaning male hormones, testosterone and anti-Mullerian hormone. Ang chromosome na Y, no, the Y chromosome, naa siya'y particular gene. Mauning gitawag nato na SRY gene. And SRY gene is popularly known as the sex-determining gene. Kay kana nga particular gene which is found in the Y chromosome, siya ang mag-produce ng testosterone and anti-Mullerian hormone. I mean, naa sa iya ang instruction, no? Para i-produce ang testosterone and anti-Mullerian hormone and eventually maopoy mag-lead sa pag-develop ng two ducts, kadtong Wolffian and Mullerian ducts, to develop into typical male sex reproductive organs. Okay? However, here's the thing. Some Y chromosomes walay SRY gene. Sometimes missing siya. Okay? Or sometimes na ay problem, na ay issue sa kanang kana nga gene or sa kana nga chromosome na broken ang SRY gene or unsa may galing rason. And also, naapoy mga embryos nga dili responsive sa anti-Mullerian hormone. Okay? So, naanay SRY gene. So, maproduce na ang testosterone, maproduce na ang anti-Mullerian hormone, but the problem is ang embryo, okay? Wala siya, dili siya sensitive, di na siya ma-detect ang presence of kaning anti-Mullerian hormone. Mao na ang rason na mo lead into several iterations ng kaning intersex na individual na ay differences in sex development. Nganong, let's say, nganong murag na ay combination of kaning medyo female na reproductive organ tapos male reproductive organ together because again, ang rason either is na ay issue sa presence ng SRY gene in the Y chromosome or the embryo doesn't or the embryo is not sensitive enough to the presence of the anti-Mullerian hormone. Okay? More specifically, there should be an enzyme. Dapat na ay enzyme sa male embryos. Kaning mahimong male na baby. Dapat na siya enzyme which can convert testosterone into the very potent male hormone called dihydrotestosterone, kaning DHT. Okay? Kung kaning DHT is present, the embryonic structure called genital tubercle grows into a penis, and when it's absent, ang tubercle becomes a clitoris. Asa man ni? Kani o lantawan ni. Kaning sa tunga, the central figure, genital tubercle. Okay? Kaning on top sa kaning figure, the genital tubercle, again, if present ang enzyme in male embryos, makreate ng DHT, and then the DHT is critical, a critical chemical substance for that genital tubercle to become penis. Pero kung wala pod ni, walay enzyme, edi walay makreate na DHT, edi kadto mahimo siyang clitoris. Okay? So male embryos who lack this particular enzyme are born with genitals na murag ang itsura females. Okay? And also they are raised as girls. Some think of themselves as typical girls. Others sense that something is different, though they're not sure what. Okay? So maoni si Ja. Also, there are genetic variations that can occur na not related sa SRY gene in the Y chromosome. And this is this complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, in which an XY embryo cells respond minimally, if at all, to the signals of male hormones. Okay? Even though the bipotential gonads become testes, ang male genitals don't develop. The baby looks female with a clitoris and vagina, and in most cases, will grow up feeling herself to be a girl. And during puberty, our bodies differentiate from each other in a variety of ways. So kadtong na ay XX chromosomes typically begin puberty a year or two earlier, around 10 or 11, and their bodies respond to a number of different hormones including testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So remember, ang ato understanding ra ba ng XX chromosome, female, ang hormones na present sa iyang body is estrogen and progesterone. But remember, present pod na apoy role ang testosterone sa XX na sa body nga na ay XX chromosomes. That is the same. That is true sa XY chromosomes. So, ang chromosomes also have all these hormones na ay testosterone and estrogen and progesterone, but typically have a higher testosterone surge. So, pag abot sa kaning puberty, magdayaga. Can you enumerate signs of puberty for female and male bodies? Saman. Mag-deepen ang voice, mo-broaden ang shoulders, mo-grow ang breast. So, daghay physical changes. We won't enumerate them anymore because idyo naman ang naagihan in the past, no, sa high school, pubertal changes in the body. In popular culture, estrogen and testosterone are considered as sex hormones. Pero remember, that can cause misconceptions or misunderstanding because both of these hormones are found in all biological bodies. So, dili mo laong na kung biologically female, estrogen ra, or biologically male, testosterone ra. So, every person na ay ani na mga hormones. Okay? So, each of these hormones has multiple functions also. Okay? Ang testis can produce, ang testis kaning naa sa ilayom sa scrotum ng male reproductive system, that can produce estrogen which promote bone health, but not necessarily femininity. Ang ovaries pod sa mga bae can produce testosterone which contributes to muscle mass, red blood cell production, and even sex drive. We know that Typical male and female bodies differ from each other in predictable ways, such as height, strength, and genital reproductive capacity. But take note, there are many exceptions. Many people do not fit in neatly into these two boxes. Tungod lagi atong intersex individuals. Okay? So, ari kita sa usapang brain. So, again, no, mass media bombard us with ideas that males and females think differently. Males are seen typically as more rational compared to females, while females are seen typically as more emotional compared to males. Pero naa ba nay basis sa brain? One thing is for sure, no? This is one thing that we accept as truthful. People of different sexes differ in brain size. Kaya ang brain size can be related to the physical structure. So kung ang tao taas na height, you can expect bigger po iyang brain, no? Kung mubo iyang height or mubuon siya nga tao, small ang iyang bodily structure, edi gamay po ang iyang height. But remember, ang brain size doesn't have anything to do with intelligence or emotionality. Okay? So, that is sa usapang brain size alone. However, sa mga performances sa intelligence tests in terms of IQ, wala po tayo na-establish na reliable information since many IQ tests seem to be biased. Biased siya sa certain cultures. So for example, ang tag-as na mga IQ kadtong exposed lang sa traditional na media, mas makabasa na ang kaning mga, let's say, indigenous people or let's say katong mga gina-discriminate na groups in the US, for example, katong black people, kasagaran sila mo score poorly sa intelligence tests kay lagi biased. So we cannot rely on the results of kaning many IQ tests kay ginapaboran niya ang certain groups, no? Culturally biased ang many IQ tests. In specific cognitive ability tests, however, we found that we know that males tend to score higher than females when it comes to spatial ability tests. And this ability, spatial ability, is related to mathematical ability, no? So, we're saying here na medyo mas abtik ang male kaysa sa female in terms of math, but it doesn't mean mas bright na sila. Because it was also found that the scores of females in these tests can improve with practice. Okay? So, unsa implication ani? So, wala joy supposedly differences, no, sa atong skills on what we can do, on how good one can perform because it can all depend on practice. Siguro kung sa physical strength na usapan, yes, diha jud mag-differ because as I mentioned, different ang bone structure and muscle mass. But kung sa usapang brain size may differ, but in terms of intellectual performance or cognitive ability performance, magkalain man galing ang scores, but given some opportunities to practice, equal na jud ta. Okay? So, naaman po yung mga biologically male nga poor sa math. Naaman po yung mga biologically female na excellent sa math. Unsay rason? Because they received enough education, no? Or quality education in the past. Mas na-practice, mas na-develop, mas na-hone ang ilang skills. So, mahimo siyang stereotypical if we say nga mas abtik ang males on this aspect compared to females. Okay? Even sa pag-abot sa sa language ability. So kaning pag-express ng ideas, we have seen biologically male people nga abtik ma-express ng ilang ideas, abtik sa ilang kaning verbal fluency, no? And we have also seen biologically females nga dili jud abtik pod sa language. So again, it's a matter of practice. Dili siya kung related necessarily sa gender. So it's hard to be conclusive because many ang kaning different or various intellectual capacities can be done through practice. Dili ra siya automatic na kana kung male jud o kana jud siya dapat mag-engineer jud ni nga bata kay bright sa math to the point na ang bae i-default nimo na dapat mag-teacher siya. No. Kay dili man ing ana. Okay? Also, remember that people who are born with the chromosomes and genitals of one sex, di ba, they may realize that they are transgender. Asa man pod ni sa biological na perspective. Kaya di ba, remember, ang mga tao nga transgender, these are the people nga na ay incongruent sense of gender identity. Incongruent sa ilang assigned sex at birth. So, we have this researcher named Dick Swab, ingon siya, ang potential explanation ani is ang sex differentiation of the genitals takes place in the first 2 months of pregnancy. Mao tong ato na mention earlier. 'Di ba? 6 to 9 weeks of pregnancy. Diha ang differentiation mahitabo. Differentiation kung mahimo bang penis, mahimo bang vagina, ang genitalia ng baby. Okay? But ang sex differentiation sa brain, sa pagdevelop ng brain, mag-start lang siya during the second half of the pregnancy. That is sa 4th or 5th month of pregnancy. Kung sa implication, ana, ang implication ana, we're not saying na lahi jud ang brain ng male, lahi jud ang no. We don't mean that. Ang pasabot ani is ang brain ng growing baby inside the mother's womb, regardless of sex, regardless kung unsa ang chromosomes, regardless of whether that baby is going to be male, female, or intersex, naa siya'y lain-lain na exposure. Okay? Kay lahi naman pod ang environment ana nga period of pregnancy. So it can differ across sexes. So lahi siya na point, di mo siya dungan. So you don't really expect them to be congruent at all times. That's according to Dick Swab. Okay? So lahi potentially ang structure ng brain ng tao na again dili necessarily na mo congruent siya. So it turns out transgender people's brains may more closely resemble brains of their self-identified gender than those of the gender assigned at birth. So naay studies na gisite dito ni Griffiths just this year, 2023, in one region of the brain, transgender women, like other women, have fewer cells associated with the regulator hormone somatostatin than men. Okay, and also through brain scans on transgender men, it was found that their white matter in the brain was neither typically male nor typically female, but somewhere in between. Okay? Pero syempre, kaya mga studies have to be taken with a grain of salt. Okay, nga naman, aside from sample size. Kay syempre, gamay raman daw ang sample na gi-studyhan ani ng mga research. So it's hard to be, it's hard to generalize these findings to all transgender community. And also, these participants were already taking hormones. So we're not sure if these particular observations in the brains of transgender people are, are the reason for them being transgender or just the result of their transition towards being transgender. No? Okay. Now, let's delve deeper into sex chromosomes. So, unsa ning chromosomes? So, ang chromosomes mao ni siya. Asa dapit ning chromosome kaning murag X na structure sa sulod sa nucleus. Nga ang kada chromosome na diha makita ang DNA maoy naa ang instruction for development. DNA, the genetic material nga nag-store na pwede pod mapass sa next generation. Okay. Okay, so mao na siya. Sex chromosomes, as mentioned, have other purposes not related to sex determination. So, again, mauna pod ni ang misconception kay again ang sex chromosomes murag chromosomes responsible for sex, but remember these chromosomes have other purposes not related to sex determination. For example, the X chromosome has about 1,000 genes which are connected or related or responsible for color vision, blood clotting, and hair growth. Y chromosome, on the other hand, has about 200 genes which are involved in immune system regulation, cancer growth, and heart disease risk. Okay. This means that the X and Y chromosomes are not limited to sex determination. And also, they're not the only chromosomes that affect this process. Naapod tay XOX9 gene in chromosome 17 that together with the SRY gene in the Y chromosome, they make the embryo to develop typical male reproductive organs. Okay. And the common terms, what testosterones and estrogens do. As mentioned, both of these chemical substances are found in all of our bodies. They are very similar in structure, kaning testosterone and estrogen, that a single enzyme called aromatase can turn testosterone to estrogen. Okay? So, the first role is to act on the developing fetus to guide its physical development and likely also its cognitive development in ways that are still unclear at this time. So kaning mga hormones, no? Ang testosterone has been associated with muscle mass, facial structure, body and facial hair, the size of the penis, deepening of voice, even sex drive and aggression. Sa kaning estrogens, unlike testes which can produce testosterone in the uterus, ang ovaries remain quiet until puberty. Pwede po siya ma-synthesize in some parts of the body, particularly sa adrenal glands, kaning endocrine glands sitting on top of our kidneys, mao ni ang adrenal glands. And these are typically the source of estrogen, no? ng female body or even ng male body. Okay, pero napod siya daw sa liver, pancreas, and bones. Additionally, the body can convert testosterone to estrogen through aromatase. Okay, and sa effects ng estrogen in the body, breast development, body fat redistribution, decreased muscle mass, softer skin, bone health, and increases good cholesterol and decreases bad cholesterol. In summary, okay, this is our summary. From a historical perspective, sa kadtong chapter 2, no, when we examined early humans and also the history of gender in the Philippines, many societies were much more, the early societies were much more egalitarian. Men and women were equal, quote unquote, until nahimong prominent ang agriculture, production, and the emphasis on property and wealth. Okay? So dito nagsugod ang pag-value more ng men or males. Okay? Kay again, important man ang physical power. In the Philippines, ang gender crossing was not a problem also, and females and male leaders were equally accepted, equally valued in the pre-colonial Philippine society until ideas of patriarchy, religion na daya ng mga Spaniards, and formal education nga daya ng mga Americans. When these ideas were introduced by Spanish and American colonizers. Okay, so dito nag-change ang atong views na dapat walay gender crossing, dapat ang leaders male lang yun, ang mas i-honor male lang yun. And also, from a biological perspective, we have learned in this lecture video that all human beings as embryos, no, in the first 2 months of life in the womb of our mothers, we all begin equal. We all begin the same. We all begin with the same progonads or the same bipotential gonads until certain genes bring in hormones leading to differences between male and female bodies. Unsa ni nga genes? Gene that is particularly found in the Y chromosome. Okay, so in terms of our sex differences in our brains, we are also equal until stereotypes are created that serve to reinforce culturally prescribed gender roles and expectations. So that's the end of this lecture video. Thank you so much for watching.